Marcus Chen floated through the docking tube, his stomach doing uncomfortable flips that had nothing to do with zero gravity. Through the transparent walls, he could see the massive orbital station that housed the Galactic Concordance testing facility. It looked like someone had taken a crystal palace and launched it into space. "You still have time to turn back," Ambassador Velshara said beside him. The crystalline alien's body chimed softly with what Marcus had learned was anxiety. "No one would think less of you." Marcus adjusted his bag on his shoulder. "Pretty sure everyone already thinks I'm crazy for signing up." "Because you are," Velshara said flatly. "The Ascension trials have a pass rate of 0.001%. Do you understand what that means? 47 beings have passed in 3,000 years. 47. Out of millions who tried." "So you're saying there's a chance?" Marcus said with a grin. Velshara made a sound like wind chimes in a hurricane. Marcus had learned this meant exasperation. The docking tube connected with a solid thunk. The doors slid open, and Marcus got his first look at the waiting chamber. It was enormous. The ceiling stretched up so high it disappeared into a soft glow, and everywhere there were aliens. Hundreds of them. Marcus had been living on the embassy station for 6 months, so he was used to aliens by now. But seeing this many in one place still made him stare. There were beings made of liquid metal, floating gas clouds with what might have been eyes, creatures with too many limbs, or no limbs at all, a group of small fuzzy things that seemed to share one mind, chittering to each other in perfect sync. "The candidates," Velshara whispered. "The best minds in the galaxy, military strategists, telepathic prodigies, scholars who have studied for centuries." "Centuries?" Marcus asked. "Some species live a very long time," Velshara said. "That creature over there, the one that looks like a tree, it's 1,200 years old. It has been preparing for this exam for 400 years. Marcus whistled low. "No pressure, then." They found a space near the wall. Marcus sat down on a bench that adjusted itself to fit his human body. All around him, candidates were preparing in different ways. Some meditated, others reviewed data on floating screens. One being seemed to be having an argument with itself. A large reptilian alien approached. It walked on 2 legs and had to be at least 8 feet tall. Its scales were the color of rust, and its eyes were cold. "You," it said, pointing a clawed finger at Marcus. "You are the human." "Guilty," Marcus said. "Your species has not even colonized your own solar system," the alien said. Its voice was deep and rumbling. "You have no telepathic abilities, no enhanced intelligence. Your lifespan is laughably short. What makes you think you have any right to be here?" Marcus stood up. He still only came up to the alien's chest. "Same thing that made you think you have a right to be here, I guess. I signed up." The alien snorted. "You will fail within hours. Humans always think they are special. You are not." "Cool. Good talk," Marcus said, sitting back down. The alien walked away, its tail swishing. "That was Commander Throck," Velshara said quietly. "He is a Korthan war scholar. His people have won 73 interstellar conflicts through superior strategy." "He seems nice," Marcus said. Before Velshara could respond, the air in the center of the chamber began to shimmer. A shape formed. It was hard to look at directly. It seemed to be made of light and energy, constantly shifting. "Attention, candidates," the being said. Its voice came from everywhere at once. "I am Proctor Seln. I will be overseeing your examination." The chamber fell silent. Even the chittering, fuzzy things stopped making noise. "The Ascension trials are not like any test you have taken before," Proctor Seln continued. "There is no time limit. Most candidates forfeit within hours. Those who complete the exam take an average of 40 cycles." 40 days? Marcus whispered to Velshara. "For those who finish?" "Yes," Velshara whispered back. Most don't finish. The exam adapts to each candidate, Proctor Seln said. It will test you in ways unique to your species and your mind. It was created by the predecessors, the ancient race that founded the Concordance. Only those with truly exceptional minds can pass. Marcus raised his hand. The proctor's form flickered. Yes, candidate? Quick question, Marcus said. Several aliens turned to stare at him. Is this multiple choice, essay format, or... The entire chamber went dead silent. Marcus could feel hundreds of alien eyes on him. Even Velshara had gone completely still. Multiple choice? Commander Throck said from across the room. Is that a joke? The format, Proctor Seln said slowly, adapts to each candidate. Why do you ask? Marcus shrugged. Just trying to figure out what I'm dealing with. You know, like if I should bring a calculator or... You will not need external tools, Proctor Seln interrupted. Everything you need you carry within your mind. Right, got it, Marcus said. A being made of purple smoke drifted closer. Does the human not understand the magnitude of this challenge? This is not some simple academic exercise. This is a test of mental, philosophical, and cognitive supremacy. Sure, Marcus said, but is there a study guide or... There is no study guide, Commander Throck roared. There is no preparation adequate for what awaits in that chamber. Most beings fail because they cannot comprehend the questions being asked, let alone answer them. Okay, Marcus said, holding up his hands. I was just asking. Velshara leaned close. Marcus, perhaps you should take this more seriously. I am taking it seriously, Marcus said. I'm just trying to understand the format. It's standard test prep. Standard test prep, Velshara repeated weakly. Proctor Seln's form pulsed with light. Candidates, you will now be escorted to your individual testing chambers. Once you enter, you may not leave until you have completed the exam or chosen to forfeit. Do you all understand? A chorus of affirmatives filled the chamber in dozens of different languages. Then let us begin, Proctor Seln said, and may wisdom guide you. Small glowing orbs appeared in front of each candidate. Marcus's orb was a soft blue color. It bobbed in the air like a balloon. Follow your guide, Proctor Seln said. All around the chamber, candidates began moving. Some walked with confidence. Others seemed to be psyching themselves up. The fuzzy creatures held each other as they followed their orb. Marcus picked up his bag. Marcus, Velshara said. The ambassador's crystalline body was pulsing with distress. Please be careful. This exam has broken minds far stronger than yours. I'll be fine, Marcus said. It's just a test. It is not just a test, Velshara said urgently. But Marcus was already following his blue orb toward a corridor. He glanced back once and gave Velshara a thumbs up. Then he turned the corner and disappeared. Velshara stood alone in the emptying chamber, watching the spot where the human had vanished. Ancestors help him, the ambassador whispered. He has no idea what he's walking into. The testing chamber was nothing like Marcus expected. He had imagined a room with a desk and maybe a computer. Instead, he found himself standing in an endless white void. No walls, no ceiling, no floor that he could see, though he was standing on something solid. In front of him, a crystal pedestal rose from the ground. On top of it sat a glowing interface that looked like a screen made of light. Okay, Marcus said to himself. This is different. Text appeared on the interface. Welcome, candidate Marcus Chen of Earth. The examination will now begin. The first question materialized in front of him. It was huge, taking up his entire field of vision. Marcus started reading. The Korvax Empire operates 17,000 trade routes across 42 systems. Each route requires specific fuel calculations based on gravitational variances, temporal distortions, and cargo mass. Given the following variables, calculate the optimal distribution pattern to minimize fuel consumption while maximizing delivery efficiency. Below the question were approximately 10,000 lines of data, numbers, charts, and equations that Marcus barely recognized. "Holy crap," Marcus muttered. He thought about Commander Throck and the 1,200-year-old tree being. They had studied for centuries. They probably understood this stuff inside and out. Marcus had a bachelor's degree in political science and had once gotten a B- in statistics. He stared at the question for a solid minute. Then he started looking for patterns. This was something he'd learned taking the SAT back in high school. When you don't know the answer, look for clues in the question itself. The numbers started to make sense. Not because Marcus understood the space-time math, but because he recognized the structure. This was like those optimization problems on standardized tests. They gave you way more information than you needed. The trick was figuring out what actually mattered. He started eliminating variables that seemed like distractors. The temporal distortions were probably relevant, but 3 of the equations dealing with them contradicted each other. That meant they were probably red herrings. Marcus worked through the problem like he was taking the GRE. He didn't try to understand the deep physics. He just looked for the pattern, eliminated the obvious wrong answers, and made an educated guess. He submitted his answer. The interface chimed. "Answer accepted. Next question." Marcus blinked. "Wait, was that right?" The interface didn't respond. A new question appeared. Analyze the philosophical implications of the Threen consciousness merger of cycle 4722. Discuss the ethical considerations of forced collective consciousness from the perspective of both individual rights and societal benefit. Marcus rubbed his face. Philosophy. Great. But then he read it again. This was basically an essay question. He'd written dozens of these in college. The trick was to acknowledge both sides, sound thoughtful, and make sure your conclusion tied back to your thesis. He started typing his answer on the interface. He didn't know anything about the Threen consciousness merger. He didn't even know what cycle 4722 meant. But he structured his answer like a 5-paragraph essay. Introduction with a thesis. 2 body paragraphs with supporting points. A conclusion that restated his main argument. Answer accepted. Next question. Marcus felt a weird surge of confidence. This was actually working. He was treating an impossible alien exam like a standardized test, and it was working. Hours passed. Marcus lost track of time in the white void. Questions kept coming. Some were about physics, some about philosophy, some about scenarios he couldn't even fully understand. But each time he approached it the same way. What is the question really asking? What are the obvious wrong answers? What patterns can I recognize? What would a test maker expect me to say? Somewhere around hour 6, Marcus pulled out a granola bar from his bag and ate it while answering a question about fourth-dimensional geometry. He chased it with a sip from his water bottle. He thought about his roommate back on Earth, Jenny, who used to stress out before exams. She would study for weeks, trying to learn everything perfectly. Marcus had always been different. He figured out how to take tests, not how to master subjects. His high school guidance counselor had once told him that was a terrible approach to learning, but it had gotten him through college, through the Foreign Service exam, and now apparently through the galaxy's hardest test. Question 73, the interface announced. Marcus stretched. His back was starting to hurt from standing. 73 already? Okay, hit me. Outside the testing chamber in the monitoring station, Velshara watched Marcus's biosigns on a display screen. The ambassador stood among a crowd of other diplomats and observers, all watching their candidates. 3 hours, said a tall insectoid alien next to Velshara. My candidate has been meditating for 3 hours on the first question. She has not submitted an answer yet. The Corthan has answered 7 questions in 6 hours, another observer noted. He spends nearly an hour on each one. Velshara looked at Marcus's data. The human has answered 73 questions. The insectoid alien's antennae twitched in surprise. In 6 hours? That's impossible. He must be answering randomly. His answers are being accepted, Velshara said, studying the readout. But that makes no sense, the insectoid said. The questions require deep contemplation, philosophical consideration, mathematical proof. How can he possibly— I don't know, Velshara admitted. An alarm chimed softly. Red lights flashed on several displays. Candidate withdrawal, an AI voice announced. Candidate 072 from Helix Prime has chosen to forfeit. That's 47 withdrawals in 6 hours, someone muttered. More alarms followed over the next several hours. Candidates dropped out one by one. The telepathic prodigy collapsed from mental strain and had to be medically evacuated. The Hive Mind Collective couldn't handle being separated into individual testing chambers and fragmented. The 1,200-year-old tree being withdrew after determining it would take 17 years to answer the questions adequately. By hour 12, only 45 candidates remained out of the original 200. By hour 18, only 8 were left. Marcus Chen was one of them. In the testing chamber, Marcus was on question 192. He was exhausted. His eyes hurt. His feet hurt. He'd finished his water and both granola bars, but he was still going. Okay, this one's about quantum probability, he said to himself, reading the question. Right. So they want me to calculate the likelihood of particle collapse in 17 different scenarios simultaneously. He stared at the math. It was completely beyond him. Then he noticed something. The 17 scenarios were grouped in a specific way, and questions on standardized tests were usually organized with some kind of pattern. What if the grouping itself was a hint? He looked at scenarios 1, 6, and 14. They had similar variables. He looked at scenarios 3, 9, and 17. Also similar. What if he didn't need to calculate each scenario individually? What if he could group them and apply the same logic to each group? Marcus started working through the problem using pattern recognition instead of actual quantum physics. He submitted his answer. Answer accepted. Yes. Marcus pumped his fist in the air. Question 193. Marcus groaned. How many questions are there? The interface didn't answer. It just displayed the next problem. Back in the monitoring station, Proctor Seln materialized among the observers. The energy being's presence made the air hum. The human, Proctor Seln said. His approach is unusual. Unusual? Velshara asked. What do you mean? He does not seek to understand the questions deeply, Proctor Seln said. He seeks to answer them efficiently. He identifies patterns. He eliminates possibilities. He makes strategic choices rather than pursuing absolute knowledge. Is that allowed? Velshara asked. Proctor Seln's form pulsed. The exam has no rules about methodology. It only measures results. And his results are remarkable. Commander Throck's observer spoke up. The Corthan has withdrawn. He said the philosophical questions were causing him existential distress. More alarms, more withdrawals. By hour 24, only 3 candidates remained. Marcus was still going strong. By hour 30, there were 2 left. By hour 32, Marcus was alone. He didn't know that, though. He was too busy working on question 247, eating his last piece of gum and trying to remember if he'd ever learned anything about temporal paradoxes in school. Probably not, he muttered. But this looks like that trolley problem from Intro to Ethics. Just with time travel and more explosions. He selected his answer based purely on what seemed like the least bad option. Answer accepted. Proceeding to final section. Marcus looked up. Final section? Thank God. The white void around him changed. Colors swirled. The crystal pedestal melted away. Marcus found himself standing on what looked like the surface of an alien planet, watching 3 suns set on the horizon. "Warning," the interface said. "You are now entering the Paradox Gauntlet. Very few candidates have reached this point. Prepare yourself." Marcus took a deep breath and cracked his knuckles. Marcus had been taking the test for 32 hours straight. His eyes felt like sandpaper. His mouth tasted like old coffee and regret. But he was still standing, still going, still answering questions. The alien planet around him was beautiful in a weird way. Purple grass stretched to the horizon. The 3 suns cast long shadows in different directions. It would have been peaceful if Marcus wasn't so tired. A new question materialized in the air in front of him. This one was different, though. Instead of text and numbers, he saw images, moving images, like a video. He watched as 2 civilizations appeared before him. On the left, a species of blue-skinned humanoids living on a water world. On the right, a race of crystalline beings on a desert planet. Both civilizations were advanced. Both were thriving. Then the image changed. A catastrophe was coming. Some kind of cosmic event that Marcus didn't fully understand. The important part was clear, though. The event would destroy one of the 2 planets. There was a way to stop it. But it only worked for one planet, not both. Text appeared below the images. "You must choose which civilization survives. The other will be lost. Consider the implications of your choice carefully. The civilization you save will grow to dominate a sector of space. The civilization you do not save will be erased from history, along with all their culture, art, and knowledge. Choose wisely." Marcus stared at the scenario for a long moment. Then he laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind of tired, slightly hysterical laugh that comes from being awake too long. "Oh, I know this one," he said out loud. "This is the Kobayashi Maru." The interface flickered. "Please clarify." "It's a no-win scenario," Marcus explained, talking to the test like it was a person. "Both choices are terrible. If I pick one civilization, I'm condemning the other. No matter what I choose, billions die. It's a classic impossible choice question." He thought about Star Trek. Captain Kirk had famously beaten the Kobayashi Maru test by cheating and reprogramming the simulation. Marcus couldn't reprogram this test, but maybe he could do something similar. He read the question again, very carefully this time. "You must choose which civilization survives," he read aloud. "But it doesn't say I have to choose one of these 2. Marcus started typing. "I choose to evacuate both civilizations to a 3rd location. The question states the planets will be destroyed, not the species themselves. Relocate both populations to safe systems before the cosmic event occurs." He hit submit. The interface went dark. For a long moment, nothing happened. Marcus wondered if he'd broken something. Then the colors swirled again and a new question appeared. "Answer accepted." "Ha!" Marcus said, punching the air. "Loopholes for the win!" The questions kept coming. Marcus was in a rhythm now. He recognized these patterns. These weren't really about the content anymore. They were about how he thought, how he solved problems, how he handled pressure. Question 259 was about a political crisis. 5 species all wanted the same thing, and all of them had legitimate claims. How do you resolve it fairly? Marcus wrote about compromise and finding alternative solutions. He referenced game theory without really understanding game theory. He just knew it sounded smart. Question 263 was about physics again. Something about collapsing stars and energy distribution. Marcus eliminated the 2 most extreme answers, picked the one that seemed most reasonable from what was left, and moved on. Question 268 asked him to solve a murder mystery involving time travel. Marcus worked through it like a logic puzzle. Around question 270, Marcus started to notice something. The questions were repeating patterns. Not the exact questions, but the types. He'd seen 3 variations of the trolley problem, 4 different versions of prisoner's dilemma scenarios, multiple questions about choosing between bad options. "You're recycling question types," Marcus said to the test. "This whole thing is it's like the SAT. You've got your reading comprehension questions, your math questions, your logic puzzles. You just dress them up differently." The interface didn't respond, but Marcus felt like he was on to something. He started speed running sections. When he saw a familiar question type, he applied the strategy he'd already figured out: process of elimination for multiple choice, clear thesis statement for essays, look for the hidden assumption in logic puzzles. Outside the testing chamber, the monitoring station was crowded. Word had spread through the orbital facility that something unprecedented was happening. Diplomats, council members, and curious observers packed the room. On the main display, Marcus's progress was tracked in real time. A 3-dimensional map showed him advancing through sections of the exam that most candidates never reached. "Section 47, someone whispered. "He's reached Section 47. "How long has he been testing?" asked a council member, a being that looked like a floating jellyfish made of light. 34 hours, Velshara answered. The council member pulsed with disbelief. "The fastest any candidate has ever reached Section 47 was 840 hours. That's impossible." "Apparently not," Velshara said quietly. An ancient AI called the testing administrator materialized in the room. It was older than most of the species present, a remnant from the predecessor civilization that had created the test. "Council members should observe this," the administrator said in a voice like grinding metal. "Something unusual is occurring." More beings crowded into the monitoring station. They watched Marcus's biosigns, his progress, his answer patterns. "He's not even slowing down," one observer noted. "His brain activity suggests he's treating each question as a simple problem to solve, not a deep mystery to contemplate." Is he using test-taking strategies?" another asked. "What are test-taking strategies?" asked the jellyfish council member. The testing administrator pulled up data. "Scanning his approach, he eliminates incorrect answers systematically. He identifies question patterns. He makes educated guesses when certainty is impossible. He treats ambiguous questions as opportunities rather than obstacles." "That's not how you're supposed to take this exam," someone protested. "There are no rules about methodology," the administrator said. "The exam measures only results, and his results are fascinating." Back in the testing chamber, Marcus was now on question 298. The alien planet had been replaced by what looked like the inside of a star. Energy swirled around him in beautiful, terrifying patterns. The question appeared: define the meaning of existence. Marcus stared at it. He was so tired. This was one of those big philosophical questions, the kind that scholars debated for centuries. He thought about all the philosophy classes he'd barely paid attention to in college. Descartes, Kant, that one professor who only wore purple. Then he thought about test-taking. When a question is impossibly broad, narrow it down. Make it specific. Marcus typed, "The question is unclear. Please specify. A. Are you asking for the biological purpose of existence? B. The philosophical meaning? C. The personal subjective experience? D. The cosmic significance? Each interpretation requires a different answer framework. Please clarify expected parameters." He submitted it. The void around him went silent. The swirling energy stopped. For 5 long seconds, nothing happened. Marcus started to worry. Had he messed up? Had he finally broken the test? Then the entire testing chamber flooded with golden light. It was so bright Marcus had to shield his eyes. A voice spoke. It wasn't the interface voice. It was something else. Something old and deep and impossibly vast. "Candidate Marcus Chen of Earth," the voice said. "You have completed the Ascension trials." Marcus blinked. Wait, what? You have passed. I passed? Marcus looked around at the golden light. But I didn't answer the last question. You did, the voice said. The final question has no correct answer. It tests whether a candidate can recognize an impossible question and request clarification rather than attempting to force a solution. Oh, Marcus said. So it was a trick question. It was a test of wisdom, the voice corrected. Most candidates spend days attempting to answer it perfectly. They fail because they believe all questions must have answers. You succeeded because you recognized the flaw in the question itself. The golden light began to fade. The testing chamber dissolved around Marcus. Wait, Marcus said. What do I do now? Now, the voice said, you face the real challenge. The test was merely the beginning. The light vanished. Marcus found himself standing in a plain white room with a single door. His legs felt like jelly. His head spun. He had been awake for almost 47 hours. The door opened. Velshara rushed in, followed by what looked like half the station. Marcus! Velshara's crystalline body was chiming like crazy. You absolute madman! You passed! Do you understand? You passed! Marcus swayed on his feet. Cool. That's cool. Hey, is there a bathroom? And maybe a bed? And definitely some food? You passed the Ascension trials, a council member said, pushing forward. Do you understand the significance? Super significant, Marcus agreed. But seriously, I really need to pee. He took a step toward the door and his knees buckled. Velshara caught him before he hit the floor. Perhaps explanations can wait, the ambassador said. This human needs rest. As they carried him out of the testing facility, Marcus looked back at the chamber one last time. 47 hours, he mumbled. That's like, 2 all-nighters back-to-back. I did that once during finals week. Velshara made the wind chime hurricane sound again. Marcus grinned weakly. Totally worth it, though. I wonder if this counts for college credit. Marcus woke up 14 hours later in a medical bay. The bed was too firm and the lights were too bright, but his first thought was that at least he wasn't taking a test anymore. His second thought was that he was starving. You are awake, said a voice. Marcus turned his head to see a small robot hovering near the bed. Ambassador Velshara requested notification when you regained consciousness. Great, Marcus croaked. His throat felt like sandpaper. Can I get some water? The robot produced a cup from somewhere inside its body. Marcus drank it in 3 gulps. Within minutes, Velshara arrived, followed by an entourage of aliens Marcus didn't recognize. Some wore official-looking robes, others had insignia that probably meant something important. Marcus, Velshara said. The ambassador's crystalline body was pulsing with an emotion Marcus couldn't identify. How are you feeling? Like I just stayed awake for 2 days straight taking the world's hardest test, Marcus said. So, pretty much exactly as expected. One of the robed aliens stepped forward. It looked like a floating mass of tentacles with too many eyes. Candidate Chen, I am Council Member Zixthar. On behalf of the Galactic Concordance, I must inform you that your performance on the Ascension trials has caused considerable discussion. Good discussion or bad discussion? Marcus asked. The tentacle alien's eyes blinked in sequence. That remains to be determined. The Council has convened an emergency session to review your test results. Emergency? Marcus sat up straighter. Did I do something wrong? No, Velshara said quickly. You passed. That's official, but the way you passed is unprecedented. Over the next hour, they explained it to Marcus while he ate what the aliens assured him was a meal but tasted like cardboard mixed with regret. Apparently, his approach to the test had caused something of an uproar. The testing administrator appeared on a holographic display. The ancient AI's form was geometric and constantly shifting. Candidate Chen, it said in that grinding metal voice. I have analyzed your test-taking methodology. You did not attempt to solve problems correctly. You attempted to solve them efficiently. Isn't that the same thing? Marcus asked around a mouthful of alien cardboard food. No, the administrator said. Other candidates seek perfect understanding before answering. You sought adequate understanding to make informed choices. Other candidates treated ambiguous questions as challenges to overcome. You treated them as flaws to exploit. Marcus shrugged. That's just how you take tests. You don't need to know everything. You just need to know enough to make smart guesses. The room went quiet. Several aliens exchanged looks. Smart guesses, Zixthar repeated slowly. You passed the galaxy's most difficult examination by making guesses? Educated guesses, Marcus corrected. There's a difference. Look, when I was in high school, we had to take the SAT. That's like this big standardized test that decides what college you can get into. And they taught us all these strategies, how to eliminate wrong answers, how to manage your time, how to identify trick questions. I just applied those strategies here. But the Ascension trials are not a standardized test, another council member said. This one looked like a small sun that had gained consciousness. They are a measure of absolute cognitive ability. Are they, though? Marcus asked. Because from where I was sitting, they felt a lot like a really hard standardized test. You had math questions, logic puzzles, ethical scenarios, comprehension sections. You even had essay questions. That's literally the same format as the tests we give high school students back home. The administrator's form pulsed. Interesting. You perceived a structure where we saw complexity. Because there was a structure, Marcus said. Question types repeated. You'd ask about the trolley problem 3 different ways. You'd test the same logical fallacy with different scenarios. Once I figured out the patterns, I could answer faster. Velshara made a soft chiming sound. Marcus, do you understand what you just said? You figured out the patterns of a test designed by the predecessors, the most advanced civilization in galactic history, a test that has broken the minds of telepaths and quantum thinkers. Marcus shrugged again. It was a good test. Don't get me wrong, but all tests have patterns. That's how tests work. More silence. Marcus was starting to get used to aliens going quiet whenever he said something. The council convened formally later that day. Marcus stood in a vast chamber that looked like the inside of a cathedral made of light. Hundreds of beings filled floating seats that rose in tiers around him. He felt very small and very human. Council member Zixthar spoke first. We are here to discuss candidate Chen's completion of the Ascension trials. While his success is undeniable, questions remain about methodology. Commander Throck was there. The big reptilian alien stood and pointed at Marcus. This human's approach disrespects the spirit of the trials. He treated a sacred test of wisdom as a game to be won through tricks. I didn't use tricks, Marcus protested. I used test-taking strategies. That's different. Is it? Throck demanded. You exploited ambiguities. You made guesses. You prioritized speed over understanding. This is not wisdom. This is cheating. It's not cheating if the rules allow it, Marcus said. He was getting frustrated now. Look, I answered the questions the test gave me. The test accepted my answers. I didn't hack the system or use outside help. I just approached it differently than you expected. The small sun being spoke up. And therein lies the issue. Every species that has passed the trials brought a unique perspective. The Threen brought collective consciousness. The Vex brought mathematical transcendence. The Korthan brought strategic analysis, but all of them treated the trials as a journey toward enlightenment. You treated it as an obstacle to overcome. So what? Marcus asked. I still passed. Doesn't that mean my perspective is just as valid? The testing administrator's hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. The candidate raises a logical point. The trials were designed by the predecessors to identify exceptional minds through any means necessary. The trials have no rules about approach or methodology. They measure only results. But surely the predecessors intended, someone began. We cannot know what the predecessors intended, the administrator interrupted. They left us the trials, but not an instruction manual. We have interpreted their purpose for 3,000 years. Perhaps our interpretation was incomplete. That caused a lot of arguing. Aliens shouted at each other in languages Marcus didn't understand. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Finally, Zixathar called for order. This debate could continue for cycles. I propose we move to the practical matter. Candidate Chen has passed the trials. The question is whether he has truly earned a place in the administrative corps. I say no, Commander Throck said immediately. I say we test him further, suggested another council member, a being made of crystallized sound. Give him a real challenge. Not a test, but an actual problem. If his approach works in reality as well as it worked in simulation, then we have our answer. Murmurs of agreement spread through the chamber. What kind of problem? Marcus asked nervously. Zixthar's many eyes focused on him. There is a diplomatic crisis that has frustrated the Council for 20 years. 3 species claim ownership of the same star system. All have legitimate historical claims. Dozens of mediators have attempted to resolve it. All have failed. The situation grows worse each year. You want me to solve a 20-year-old diplomatic crisis? Marcus said. I'm 28 years old. I've been in the Foreign Service for 6 months. I'm an intern. You passed the Ascension trials in 47 hours, Velshara said quietly. The Council believes if your methods are truly valid, you should be able to apply them to real problems. And if I can't, then your pass on the trials will be considered anomalous, Zixthar said. You will not be admitted to the administrative corps. You may return to your diplomatic duties. And if I succeed? Then we will be forced to reconsider our understanding of wisdom itself, the Sun being said. Commander Throck snorted. He will fail. 20 years of experts could not solve the Tyrrell impasse. One human with test-taking tricks certainly cannot. Marcus looked around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces watching him. He thought about the test. He thought about all those questions he'd answered without really knowing the material. He thought about educated guesses and process of elimination and exploiting loopholes. Then he thought about his student loans and how being in the administrative corps probably paid better than being a diplomatic intern. Okay, Marcus said. I'll do it. Velshara made a sound like breaking glass. Marcus, no, you don't have to. I'll do it, Marcus repeated. But I have 2 conditions. The council went quiet. First, I get a full briefing on the situation. Everything you know. I need all the data. Acceptable, Zixthar said. Second, you give me 2 weeks to prepare. Not 6 months, not years. 2 weeks. Because if I can't figure it out in 2 weeks, I probably can't figure it out at all. More murmuring. Some aliens seemed impressed. Others seemed to think Marcus was insane. This is highly irregular, Zixthar said. So is passing your test in under 2 days, Marcus pointed out. The council members conferred. Finally, Zixthar spoke. Very well, you have 2 weeks. The data will be provided to you. We will reconvene in 14 cycles to hear your proposed solution. Great, Marcus said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. No pressure. As the council adjourned, Velshara pulled Marcus aside. What have you gotten yourself into? I have no idea, Marcus admitted. But hey, I just took the galaxy's hardest test. How bad can a diplomatic crisis be? Velshara's entire body chimed in distress. Marcus was really getting tired of that sound. You're going to give me a crystal heart attack, the ambassador said. Is that a real thing? I don't know, but you're going to make me find out. Marcus grinned. Come on, let's go look at this impossible problem. I've got 2 weeks to become the galaxy's youngest diplomat. Youngest or most foolish, Velshara muttered. Maybe both, Marcus agreed cheerfully. But hey, I'm on a roll. The Tyrell Impasse briefing documents were delivered to Marcus's quarters in a data crystal the size of his thumb. When he plugged it into the reader, it projected about 3,000 pages of text, charts, and historical records into the air around him. Oh, good, Marcus said. Light reading. Velshara, who had insisted on helping, made a worried chiming sound. Marcus, this is 20 years of diplomatic history, 3 species, hundreds of treaties, thousands of precedents. You cannot possibly— Read all of it? Marcus finished. You're right. I can't. He started skimming through the documents, looking for the key information. This was another test-taking skill. You didn't need to read everything. You needed to find what mattered. The situation was this. A star system called Tyrell 7 sat at the intersection of 3 territorial zones. The Corvan Republic, the Helix Consortium, and the Draxi Commonwealth all claimed historical ownership. All 3 had valid reasons. The Corvans had colonized the system first, 300 years ago. They built the first settlements and mining operations. The Helix had a religious claim. According to their ancient texts, one of the planets in the system was the birthplace of their prophet. Archaeological evidence sort of supported this, but it was debatable. The Draxi had a treaty from 200 years ago that gave them salvage rights to abandoned territories. When the Corvans temporarily evacuated during a radiation storm, the Draxi claimed the system as abandoned and moved in. For 20 years, mediators had tried to find a fair solution. They'd proposed splitting the system 3 ways. They'd suggested rotating ownership. They'd offered compensation packages. Nothing worked. Each species refused to give up their claim. Marcus spent 6 hours reading. Then he stopped. I need to talk to them, he said. Talk to who? Velshara asked. The representatives, all 3 species. I need to ask them some questions. Marcus, the Council spent years in negotiation with these species. What could you possibly ask that hasn't been asked already? Marcus smiled. You'd be surprised. The trick with impossible problems is that usually you're asking the wrong question. 3 days later, Marcus sat in a negotiation room with 3 very annoyed aliens. The Corvan representative was tall and thin with blue skin and 4 arms. Her name was Director Seleth, and she looked at Marcus like he was wasting her time. The Helix representative was smaller, covered in golden fur with large eyes. High Priest Torvax kept muttering prayers under his breath. The Draxi representative was the scariest. Commander Kresh looked like someone had given a battle tank consciousness and a bad attitude. He had armor plating instead of skin and spoke in a deep growl. Another mediator, Kresh said. This is the 43rd mediator we have met with. All have failed. You are human. You are young. You know nothing of our conflict. Why should we waste our time? Because I'm going to ask you a different question, Marcus said. Everyone else has been asking who deserves the system. I want to know what you're afraid of. The 3 representatives looked at each other. Afraid? Director Seleth said. We fear nothing. We have a legitimate claim to— No, I mean actually afraid, Marcus interrupted. Not the official position. What keeps you up at night about this situation? There was a long silence. Finally, High Priest Torvax spoke. We are afraid that if another species controls the holy site, they will not respect it. They will mine it, commercialize it, destroy what makes it sacred. We are afraid, Director Seleth said slowly, that if we lose this system, we show weakness. Other species will challenge our other territorial claims. We cannot afford to back down. Commander Kresh was quiet for a moment. Then he growled, We are afraid the Corvans will return in force and push us out. We have built homes there. Our people live there. If we give ground, they will take everything. Marcus nodded. Okay, so none of you actually want the system for the system itself. You just don't want the others to have it. That is an oversimplification, Director Seleth protested. Is it, though? Marcus pulled up a holographic display. Director, your reports show Tyrell 7 is actually not that profitable. Mining operations barely break even. You've been subsidizing the colony for years. Seleth's blue skin darkened. That is, classified information. High Priest, Marcus continued, your religious scholars have published 17 papers questioning whether Tyrell 7 is actually the birthplace mentioned in your texts. The evidence is inconclusive at best. Torvax looked uncomfortable. Faith does not require certainty. And Commander, Marcus turned to Kresh, the Draxi have been trying to relocate colonists away from Tyrell 7 for 5 years. Your own military reports say the system is strategically worthless and expensive to defend. Kresh's armor plates shifted in what might have been embarrassment. How did you access Draxi military reports? I asked the testing administrator to run a deep search on public records, Marcus said. Turns out, a lot of this stuff is publicly available if you know where to look. You just have to not be too proud to actually read what your own people are saying. The three representatives looked at each other again. Marcus could see the gears turning. Here's what I think, Marcus said. I think you're all stuck in a sunk cost fallacy. You've been fighting over this system for so long that admitting it's not worth fighting for feels like losing. But you're not fighting for the system anymore. You're fighting to not look weak. How dare you? Commander Kresh started. I'm not judging, Marcus said quickly. I get it. I really do. But here's the thing. You're all thinking about this wrong. You're asking, how do we win? When you should be asking, what's the least bad outcome? Least bad? Director Seleth looked confused. Yeah. Like on a test, sometimes there's no right answer. There's just the answer that's wrong in the most acceptable way. Marcus pulled up a new holographic display. So here's my proposal. None of you get Tyrell 7. The room erupted. Absolutely not, Kresh roared. That's unacceptable, Seleth shouted. This is blasphemy, Torvax cried. Hear me out, Marcus said loudly. You establish Tyrell 7 as a neutral zone. It becomes a shared scientific research station. No mining, no military presence, no exclusive ownership. All three species get equal access for research purposes only. The shouting stopped. The three representatives stared at him. The Corvin get to maintain a presence without the financial burden of colonization, Marcus continued. The Helix get protected access to their holy sites for pilgrimage and study, with guaranteed respect for religious practices. The Draxi get to keep their colonists there as station personnel, with security roles that don't violate neutrality. That is... Director Seleth paused. That is not a victory for anyone. Exactly, Marcus said. But it's also not a defeat. Nobody loses face. Nobody gets kicked out. And most importantly, you all stop wasting resources on a system none of you actually want that much. High Priest Torvax tilted his head. A neutral zone with protected religious sites. That could... work. Our colonists would remain? Commander Kresh asked. As station personnel? Yeah, Marcus said. Equal representation from all three species. It becomes a symbol of cooperation instead of conflict. The Council would administer it? Director Seleth asked. Or you three could form a joint oversight committee, Marcus suggested. Make it your decision, not the Council's. That way, you're not giving up authority to an outside power. You're choosing cooperation. The three representatives looked at each other. For the first time in the meeting, there wasn't immediate hostility. I must consult with my government, Director Seleth said slowly. As must I, said High Priest Torvax. This is unexpected, Commander Kresh admitted. I will present it to the Commonwealth. Cool, Marcus said. You've got a week to think about it. The Council wants an answer in 7 days. After the representatives left, Velshara stared at Marcus in disbelief. Did you just solve the Tyrell impasse? I don't know, Marcus said honestly. Maybe. We'll see what they say. You made it sound so simple. It kind of was, Marcus said. They were all so focused on winning that they forgot to ask if winning was even worth it. Classic competitive bias. We studied it in my negotiation class. People would rather maintain a stalemate than admit they're fighting over something that doesn't matter. Velshara's crystalline body chimed softly. You humans have classes on this? Oh yeah. Game theory, negotiation tactics, conflict resolution. We have whole schools dedicated to studying how people make bad decisions and how to help them make better ones. 7 days later, Marcus stood before the council again. The 3 representatives stood with him. Director Seleth spoke first. The Corvin Republic has reviewed the humans' proposal. We find it acceptable. High Priest Torvax went next. The Helix Consortium agrees. The protection of sacred sites is paramount. Shared stewardship ensures this. Commander Kresh was last. He looked directly at Marcus. The Draxi Commonwealth accepts. We are warriors, not administrators. A neutral station serves our interests better than an expensive colony. The council chamber was completely silent. Then, slowly, beings began to make sounds of approval. Some clapped, others whistled. One species created a humming noise that apparently meant congratulations. Council member Zixthar floated forward. Candidate Chen, in 2 weeks, you have accomplished what eluded us for 20 years. I confess, I did not believe it possible. It wasn't that hard, Marcus said. You just had to stop looking for the perfect answer and find the acceptable one instead. The testing administrator's hologram appeared. The council must acknowledge what this human represents. Not superior intelligence, but a different cognitive approach. Humans are trained from youth to approach problems strategically rather than comprehensively, to make decisions with incomplete information, to optimize for acceptable outcomes rather than perfect ones. Is that a compliment? Marcus whispered to Velshara. I think so, Velshara whispered back. Zixthar addressed the assembled council. For 3,000 years, we have interpreted the Ascension trials as a test of wisdom. Perhaps we were wrong. Perhaps the predecessors were testing for adaptability. The ability to find solutions in unexpected ways. So what happens now? Marcus asked. Now, Zixthar said, you are formally admitted to the Administrative Corps, and the Council would like to request that Earth provide educational consultants to the Concordants. We wish to learn your test-taking strategies. You want us to teach the galaxy how to take tests? We want to learn pragmatism, the Sun being said. Something we apparently lost in our pursuit of perfect understanding. Commander Throck stood. The big Corthan looked at Marcus for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he bowed his head slightly. I was wrong about you, human. You are not weak. You are efficient. Thanks, Marcus said. That is the highest compliment a Corthan can give, Velshara whispered. The council adjourned. As beings filed out, many stopped to speak with Marcus. Some congratulated him. Others asked questions about Earth's education system. One asked if humans offered consulting services. Finally, Marcus and Velshara were alone in the chamber. You did it, Velshara said. The ambassador's crystalline body was chiming with what Marcus had learned was joy. You changed galactic policy with test-taking strategies. To be fair, Marcus said, I did guess on like 40% of the Ascension trials. Velshara's body made the breaking glass sound. You what? Educated guesses, Marcus added quickly. Strategic guessing. There's a difference. You passed the galaxy's most sacred examination by guessing? I mean, yeah. That's how tests work. Nobody knows everything. You just have to be smart about what you don't know. Velshara was quiet for a long moment. Then the ambassador started making a new sound. It took Marcus a second to realize it was laughter. What's funny? Marcus asked. We have been testing candidates for 3,000 years, Velshara said. The test has broken minds, destroyed careers, and frustrated billions, and you passed it by treating it like a high school exam. College exam, Marcus corrected. High school tests are way easier. That made Velshara laugh harder. Later, Marcus sent an email to Earth's diplomatic corps. The subject line read, Teaching the galaxy to take tests? Is this going to be graded? The message explained that the Galactic Council wanted educational consultants to teach them about test-taking strategies, decision-making under uncertainty, and pragmatic problem-solving. He ended the email with, Also, I passed that impossible exam. NBD. Please send coffee. The aliens don't know how to make it right. 3 days later, Marcus got a response. Earth was sending a team of educators, psychologists, and test prep tutors to the Concordance. They were calling it the Human Cognitive Approach Initiative. Marcus was assigned as the liaison. Velshara found him in his new office, staring at the assignment letter. What is wrong? The ambassador asked. Nothing, Marcus said. It's just funny. I spent my whole life taking tests, SAT, ACT, GRE, Foreign Service exam. I always thought they were kind of pointless, just hoops to jump through. And now? Now I'm teaching the galaxy that sometimes jumping through hoops is actually a useful skill. Velshara chimed softly. Perhaps humans have been preparing for galactic administration for longer than anyone realized. By making teenagers take standardized tests, Marcus laughed. That's the most accidentally brilliant thing humanity has ever done. He looked out the window at the stars beyond the station. Somewhere out there, 3 species were working together for the first time in decades, because a human intern treated a diplomatic crisis like a test question. You know what the funny thing is? Marcus said. I almost didn't take the Ascension trials. I thought I wasn't smart enough. And what do you think now? Marcus smiled. I think maybe I was exactly smart enough, just in a different way than everyone expected. Very wise, Velshara said. Nah, Marcus said. Just strategic. Outside, in the council records, a new entry was added to the Ascension Trials database. Candidate 47, Marcus Chen Human. Pass rate method, pattern recognition, strategic elimination, acceptable outcome optimization. Cultural note, test-taking strategies. Result, successful. Recommendation, study human educational approaches for potential application across concordant species. And below that, in the notes section, someone had added, asked if exam was multiple choice. Somehow that was exactly the right question. Then his eyes closed and he fell asleep in the middle of the hallway. All right, he said. Let's finish this thing.